famous historical events that never actually happened. What if I told you that some of the most famous events you've heard about in history never actually happened? From stories taught in classrooms to legends passed down for centuries, history is filled with myths disguised as facts. Today, we're uncovering the truth behind these false events that shape the way we see the past. History is full of drama, mystery, and unforgettable moments, but not all of them are real. Some events were twisted, exaggerated, or even fabricated entirely. Let's dive into some of the most famous historical events that never actually happened. The first myth takes us back to the story of Nero fiddling while Rome burned in 64 AD. For centuries, people believed Emperor Nero played his fiddle while a massive fire destroyed the city. But the truth is the fiddle didn't even exist yet. Ancient accounts suggest Nero was actually helping organize relief efforts. Over time, his enemies used this story to paint him as a heartless tyrant. Another widespread tale is about the Viking horned helmets. Whenever we think of Vikings, we imagine fierce warriors wearing helmets with long horns. But historians have found no evidence that Vikings ever wore such helmets in battle. This image was popularized in the 19th century by costume designers for operas. In reality, Viking helmets were simple and practical, built for protection, not intimidation. Now, let's move to Marie Antoinette's famous quote, "Let them eat cake." This phrase is often cited as proof of her cruelty and ignorance of the poor, but historians agree she never said it. The phrase actually came from a French philosopher years before she was even queen. The story spread widely, shaping her legacy as an out-of-touch monarch. Another fascinating myth surrounds the Trojan Horse. We've all heard the story Greeks built a giant wooden horse, hid inside and snuck into Troy. But most historians see this as pure legend, a tale from Homer's epic rather than an actual historical event. Archaeological evidence suggests the war may have happened, but the horse is most likely a symbolic metaphor for some other strategy. Then there's the tale of Christopher Columbus discovering America in 1492 as one of the most repeated lines in history books. But the reality is, millions of people were already living in the Americas long before Columbus arrived. And even Europeans, like the Norse explorer Leif Erikson, had reached parts of North America centuries earlier. Columbus's journey was significant, but the idea that he discovered a new world is misleading. Let's not forget the legend of Isaac Newton discovering gravity because of a falling apple. The story goes that an apple hit him on the head, sparking his great discovery. But Newton himself never wrote that. In reality, he observed apples falling and wondered why they always fell straight down, which inspired his studies on gravity. The apple story was later dramatized to make the discovery easier to remember. Another surprising myth is the story of Napoleon Bonaparte being extremely short. Cartoons and popular culture painted him as a tiny man with a big ego, but historical records show he was around 5'6" to 5'7", which was average height for his time. The idea of him being unusually short came from British propaganda meant to mock him. And how about the idea that humans in the Middle Ages believed the earth was flat? In reality, educated people in the Middle Ages already knew the earth was round. Ancient Greek scholars had proven it centuries earlier. The flat earth myth was mostly a 19th century exaggeration to make people of the past seem ignorant. One of the strangest false events is the War of the Worlds radio panic of 1938. It's said that millions of Americans believed aliens were actually invading Earth when they heard Orson Welles' radio broadcast, while some listeners were confused. The idea of mass hysteria was largely a myth created by newspapers looking to discredit radio as a competitor. Finally, let's talk about George Washington and the cherry tree. The story claims young Washington chopped down a cherry tree and confessed, saying, "I cannot tell a lie." It's a heartwarming tale of honesty, but it's also completely fake. A biographer invented it years after Washington's death to inspire children with a moral lesson. History is full of myths that have been passed down as facts. These stories remind us to question what we've been told, because sometimes the truth is stranger and more fascinating than the fiction. What other myths from history have you heard that might not be real?